when we left, we were right up to the point of the infamous October 7th admission. I want you to tell the jury at this point in the midst of your relapse, your first relapse, what symptoms you had.
I had the same burning pain, but this time it was more amplified than it was when I was getting the infusions. And I had lesions coming back. I had discoloration and change in temperatures. And my dystonia was more
Obviously,
prevalent. Sorry, I forgot.
And you were obviously in a wheelchair?
Still in a wheelchair.
Now, before October 7th, had you had this problem in the gut with being able to pass food through because of the CRPS?
That was a problem that was more with my CRPS, CS constipation.
Okay. And had you been to Johns Hopkins the week before, October 1st, to visit?
Yes.
And what was that for? Was it for the same thing, the stomach issues,
Yes.
the lower stomach issues? Okay. And at this point, you were what, 10 years old?
I was 10.
So let's talk a little bit about that visit. So do you remember the why of going there that day, that morning?
October 7th?
The 7th.
Okay. Yes, so I was in excruciating pain, and this time my stomach was also, like, it was awful. I was complaining, my knees were up to my chest, I was crying, so my dad took me in.
All right. So it was your father, not your
Yes.
mother, that took you in?
And then the week prior, my dad also took me in.
Tell me something. When you would go back to Johns Hopkins or and any of the doctors there, were they immediately aware of the history, or did your dad or mom have to explain it every time, your history?
Speculation, Your Honor. Overall.
Actually, yeah, my parents always had to re-explain my history of CRPS.
From what you saw, was this frustrating for your family, your mom and dad, to have to explain the same thing every time you come in?
Most definitely.
All right. So, so you come in and your dad gives the summary of, or describes your history. What do you recall after that?
I remember just being in the ER, but I wasn't in the ER for too long. I remember I was transferred to the Piku.
All right. And up to that point, while you were in the ER and up to the certain event, were you in pain? Were you
When I was transferred to the PICU, I remember my mom came in at some point. The nurses and doctors wanted to put a tube down my nose. And with CRPS, I mean, a blood pressure cuff, that hurts. So imagine, like a tube being shoved down your nose into your stomach. And obviously, that would have caused so much pain. And I knew my body, I knew I was not going to be able to tolerate that. That is the only time I asked for sedation. I didn't just randomly yell out, I need sedation. Like, and she listened to the doctors and didn't demand for sedation. Instead, about I would say 2 or 3 people held me down and tried to get the tube down my nose. That is when I was screaming, crying, and thrashing around. I did not curse at any of the staff. That is a lie. But they were not able to get it down, which I suspected.
But
Yes, from
we'll talk
staff.
about that. We'll talk about that in a moment. Now, they tried to do this, and so how did it feel when the doctors or nurses, I guess, held you down? Describe it in more detail. Where'd they grab you, and how hard they grabbed you, so forth?
Well, it was just like the upper body portion because they were trying to get the tube in my nose. So they were holding on my shoulders and just like my chest area. But again, they were not able to do it. Ultimately, they had to use sedation.
Okay. And I want to ask something right now, Maya. Do you have a symptom that while you're up here you might manifest known as myoclonic jerking?
Yeah, so I don't know if people have noticed this, but normally when I'm sitting in the courtroom and whatnot, I have these like little twitches. It could be anywhere from, my feet to the head. They're kind of random.
Recall after that.
Well, I do remember the tube being in my nose. I remember my mom having to leave on a certain day, and this was the last time I talked to her.
Okay. Now, and before I forget, there was, I'm sorry I'm jumping around a little bit. I'll make sure I get to this. Before we go on, by this point, did you know what having a ketamine infusion, the feeling of ketamine in
I could tell because the pain level, first off, it was lowered, and there's like a feeling, it's like, I don't know how to explain it, but you could just tell, like, you feel a little bit funny. It's not your normal self.
Okay. And then tell the jury whether, the best of your knowledge and for everything you saw, heard, felt, your mom ever gave you IV ketamine at home.
Never through the IV, no.
How did she give it to you?
It was orally administered, which was okay by the doctor and everything. It tasted a little bit weird, so at one point I asked her to add Gatorade to it, so it's just easier to go down.
But the prescription itself, and if you're aware, great. If you're not, it's okay. To the Gatorade or
Right. Never through the IV.
so you never had an IV ketamine at home.
Not at home, no.
All right. So now sorry to jump around. You're back in the hospital, and did they start to examine you? And if so, what happened after that, if you recall? Or do you recall? Yes.
Yeah, I
Yes,
remember, well, because I couldn't walk or anything, I had to have help using the bathroom. And I remember, it's quite embarrassing, but my dad was helping me clean up, and a doctor came in, or so I thought, a doctor, because I knew it looked like a doctor because all of them wear this like white lab coat, and then him down after using the restroom, and she's asking my dad questions, and then she left the room.
And did you subsequently find out who that was?
Later, I found out it was Sally Smith.
Did anyone from the hospital differentiate Sally Smith from any of the other doctors that you were seeing that day?
Absolutely not.
Did Dr. Smith explain her role in any way? Dr. Smith, then, was your mom telling the doctors, do you recall who was in there at that time, the doctor-wise? If you don't, it's
I don't know their names, sorry.
man, female, male?
It was usually more than one, but sometimes they came in individually, and it was mixed gender.
All right.
No, but there was a hurricane during this time, so I think everyone was kind of on edge.
Did you learn at that time or subsequently why you went to Johns Hopkins as opposed to other hospitals? Or, well, there was a Johns Hopkins in Sarasota, wasn't there?
I don't know. But it was a distance thing. We were staying at the Ronald McDonald House.
Oh, okay.
Because at the time, it was easier to get to my infusion place with Dr. Hannah rather than driving from Venice to wherever he was located. And it just so happened that the Ronald McDonald House is very close to Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital.
So you were on campus, in other words, at Johns Hopkins?
Yeah, pretty close.
All right. And so your mom told them about the symptoms. Do you recall them questioning you at all about your symptoms?
No.
So what happened after that, to the best of your knowledge? Did you stay up, go to sleep, what?
Well, like I said, there wasn't ever a specific time where I saw the doctors and nurses ask my mom to leave. It was only because this was the day that she had to go to work, and that was my last conversation with her. Whereas with my dad, I vividly remember people coming in and telling him that this was his last time to say goodbye to me.
So was this the last time you saw your mom?
The last time I saw my mom, my dad wasn't there. I was laying in the bed.
This was while you're in your room? Did you go?
Still in the PICU.
Still in the PICU?
Still in the PICU, yes.
So this is pretty close to when you checked in? Or
Yes,
got admitted?
yes. I know I was still in the PICU. My mom was like picking up her work bag and just like little things she had brought to the hospital, and she said, "I love you and I'll see you tomorrow." And I never saw her again.
Need some water? I noticed you're wearing a necklace. Why don't you explain that?
Yeah, so December 10th was my birthday. I turned 11, and I was unfortunately still in the hospital at the time. And the hospital has this program where they collect funds for children who are still in the hospital on their birthday. I was given $20 to spend. And I remember the social worker came in, and she asked me what I'd like to buy. I bought a Nerf gun for my brother. I bought my mom a necklace, and then I bought my dad his favorite bag of mints because I didn't have a lot of money left over. But then my Aunt Wendy bought him this little glass Christmas tree, and we just said it was for me. But I bought my mom this very specific necklace that says "I love you to the moon and back." It's just like she always said that to me. And then I found out later that she wore it every single day. And when she was found in the garage, she was still wearing it. And I have it on my neck right now.
Have some water.
Sorry.
We'll get through it. Can we publish 2571-001 we're going to switch for a second there, Monty, and ask you about obvious symptoms at the time of your admission. Now, the record reflects it. This is October 8th, 2016, so this would have been the day after you came in?
Yes,
And was this a Friday, and then this one would have been on a Saturday?
correct.
All right. And what is that there?
It's a lesion, and again, the same thing, it's just smaller ones connecting.
Okay. Now, since that time, have you had the opportunity to review some of the Johns Hopkins records that were supposed to be documenting your condition here and there?
Yes.
All right, let's show 1001-2645, and I'll represent for the record, it'll show, it's the skin assessment for that same day. Let's look for the 8th here. All right, so that's got one circular red scab and one circular pink,
Yes.
but nothing else about the other lesions on your body?
Correct.
Did you have one on your back or not?
I had one on my back, but I also had them in other areas, which they failed to document.
All right. So the ones they're talking about here, and this can be confusing, they're talking about the one on your back, or did they ever talk about the one on your legs?
They never-
The ones on your legs.
Yeah, no, they didn't, not on that date.
Okay, let's continue then. So you begin your stay there. Were your mom and dad able to come see you in your room at this time?
At this time, yes.
Okay, your dad. Okay, and then tell us about the rooms you stayed in during this period of time, October, November, December of 2016. Regular hospital rooms?
So first the emergency room, then the PICU. The most distinguishing thing about the PICU, even though every room kind of has it, it's the circular clock. And I remember that because that's all I looked at for days, and I just heard it tick because I didn't have the strength to watch anything on the TV. And then when I was moved up from the PICU to a different floor, I believe it was 7, I stayed on 7 a lot. I had multiple different rooms, even though their policy is every 30 days you switch a room. I think I stayed there over 90 days, but I had way more than 3 rooms. And these rooms had surveillance cameras. And when I was placed in those rooms with the surveillance cameras, I was told that to not worry about them, they don't work.
So now, if we could, there has been allegations here that you were outside your room 95% of the time. Can you tell the jury whether that's true?
That's not true at all. Most of the time I was in my room. There were times where I went to PT, which I was outside my room, and there was a few occasions where I went to the rec room. But for, I would say, the majority of my time, I was kept in my room.
And did the rooms have the kids that were there, their names on the door or next to the door?
So at one point, I started to get wheeled out into the hallways and whatnot, and that's when I was going to PT or the rec room. And I noticed something really weird was that all the other rooms on the floor, they had name tags. It would say the patient's name and just the last initial. Whereas with mine, I just had a sheet of paper in there with color-coded stickers. I asked the nurses what the color corresponded to and what that meant and why I didn't have a name, and they would not tell me. I asked multiple nurses, and all of them said, I can't tell you.
During this period of time, do you recall an instance where your mom was trying to get in touch with you and the nurse said something different than just simply putting it through to you?
Which instance?
Was there a time during this period, this first week or so, when your mom called for you and you did not receive the call but overheard what was said.
Yes, so I remember that my mom was on this phone call, and the person who she was speaking to, a person at the hospital, I'm not sure what role they had, but they claimed that I never asked to speak to my mom. I was doing fine. I was okay in my room. I hadn't had any questions about why my parents weren't allowed to see me. And that infuriated me so much because all I did for days on end was demand to speak to my parents. That's all I wanted to do. And I most certainly wasn't just sitting in my room, I was crying.
So now, were there other kids on the floor? I mean, were there,
Yes.
somebody to talk to, somebody you could, for lack of a better term, play with?
Well, it's a children's hospital, so there's plenty of kids all around. Again, I went to the rec room. So for people who don't know what that is, it's just like a playroom. You could do activities. There's volunteers there. So I remember going down there, nurse wheeled me down, and I was just working on some art project. I don't remember what, but this really sweet social girl, she came over to me and she just started talking to me.
How old would you think?
She looked around my age, I would say, or maybe a little bit, actually younger, sorry, my bad, younger for certain. And her mom noticed that she came over to me a lot and was talking to me. Come to find out, we were on the same floor. I was on 7. And I saw her out in the hallway one day and I asked the nurse to wheel me out. So the nurse wheeled me out. She brought me to the area. So there's like this, on the floor, there's this huge window where you could see outside of the hospital. So you could see like the street and all the cars passing by. And there's a little chair that faces this window. So people who just wanted like a change of scenery could go over there. So her mom was there with Natalie, the friend that I had made. And I was wheeled over there and I talked to them. Another nurse observed this interaction and quickly told somebody. Next thing I know, Kathy Beatty is in my room saying I'm not to ever speak to a patient again. And that day, Natalie had given me this little present because her mom noticed my parents were never with me. I think they just wanted to comfort me, and I have it in my bag today.
Did they ever give you any reason why you, as a 10-year-old, couldn't just talk to the kid next door, for lack of a better term?
I have no reason. I mean, they didn't give me any reason, and it was heartbreaking because, they had my door open a lot and the blinds were open so I could see other people conversing and interacting, and here I am all alone.
Mm-hmm. Now, were they at this time paying a lot of attention to your symptoms, discussing your symptoms with you?
Even though I told them about my symptoms and I pointed them out, it didn't matter. They kind of just ignored them.
Before we go further, I think what I want to do, if we can pull up 2003-001, the All Children's Health System, a summary of Florida patients' Bill of Rights and Responsibilities, if we could. So, Maya, were you aware of any of this at the time, or did you become aware of these later?
I was not made aware of them within the hospital. I wish I would have known them.
All right. So you had a right, I'll just paraphrase, to courtesy and respect, is that right?
Correct.
And individual dignity and protection of your privacy, is that
Correct.
right? A prompt and reasonable response to questions and requests for you. Tell me about the bathroom.
I just object to the leading on these lines of questions. Overruled.
Tell me about trying to go to the bathroom during this period. What did you have to do to get to the bathroom?
So with the whole bathroom situation, obviously I was not able to walk and I couldn't push my wheelchair at this time. So the nurses helped me, which was totally cool. But it's when the showering happened where it was really weird. So I had to have the door open and they would have to watch me because they were afraid that I would cut myself. I wasn't allowed to have a razor. Later I was able to have a razor to shave my legs, but
I just never felt good about myself.
And it says here, a patient has the right to know who's providing services and who's responsible for your care. Was it ever explained to you who was the person, other than Kathy Beatty, most responsible for your care?
No,
And so it says that you have a right to know what rules and regulations apply to your conduct. Did anybody discuss that with you ever?
no,
Were you ever shown any of these rules and regulations or rights?
no,
All right. Did you receive any information from the Johns Hopkins nurses or the doctors when they visited you about what diagnosis and what their plan was for you?
So they never told me straight up. They never said, we think you have conversion disorder. They never said, we think your mom has Munchausen by proxy. Instead, they would give me like little clues in the things that they were saying. So, for example, when I expressed to them a symptom or like my pain, they would say, no, you're making it up or it's in your head. And then at one point, the social worker, Kathy Beatty, said that my mom was in a mental institution, making me think that something was wrong with her. And I asked my dad, and it turned out to be a lie. So they were trying to even manipulate me into thinking that my mom was sick and therefore making me sick, even though it wasn't true.
Well, as the allegations of Munchausen by proxy, which are that your mom or dad are intentionally trying to keep you sick, did any of the doctors or nurses ever simply ask you about your relationship with your mom and dad?
No, and as a matter of fact, they always told me what went down in my house. Dr. Elliott, he said that my mom was putting me in a coma every single week. And I told him no. But even though I told him no, he wouldn't accept that as an answer.
Did they seem to have their own story they wanted told?
Absolutely, no doubt about that.
And so then it says a patient has a right to refuse any treatment. Were you ever given any right to accept or reject the physical therapy?
No.
What was the problem with that as time went on with the physical therapy?
So even though physical therapy, like done in a certain way, does help CRPS, when you don't listen to the patient, it's actually going to be more harmful than beneficial. So my condition just went downhill. I mean, when I got back home after being released, it was nasty.
Well, I got to ask you now, there's been some testimony about withdrawal. Did you ever experience, do you know what withdrawal is from a drug?
Yeah, I've
Did
heard
you
about
know?
it in school, yeah.
Okay. And remembering back and knowing now, did you ever have any feelings after ketamine was stopped for a period of time of withdrawal?
No, ketamine for me was stopped multiple times and for like sometimes weeks, and I've never identified with the symptoms of withdrawal.
So no sniffling and anxiety and runny nose and severe headaches and all that? None of
No.
that? So did they ever come to you and tell you that they thought you needed to stay there because you needed to be weaned off of ketamine?
They have never told me that.
Right. It goes down there and it says about a third, 2/3 of the way down, patient has a right to impartial access to medical treatment or accommodations regardless of race, sex, gender, identity, sexual orientation, national origin, religion, creed, handicap. You see that?
Yes.
All right. So tell the jury now first as to being Polish. What does the term mamusha mean? If I'm pronouncing that correctly?
Yes, you are.
I object, and I'd like to approach on this. I object, I'd like to approach on this. Your Honor.
Okay.
Objection sustained.
Let's take that down for a moment. And so it says, you also had a right to treatment where if you were deteriorating from a failure to provide treatment. As time went on, did you let them know that you were not doing so hot?
Yes, I did tell them whenever they asked, I told them of my pain. In the beginning of my stay, I told them constantly about my pain, but I soon learned that they weren't listening, so I stopped telling them and I just told them when they asked.
And how did you feel, if you could take the jury through it from when you first got in towards the end? Take us through the stages of how your physical condition went.
So when I first got in, I was in extremely bad condition because of the relapse. Once the constipation had passed, I did get a little bit better because the pain from the constipation was now gone. But my physical condition as I went on got worse and worse.
And by the end, what was their physical condition by the time you finally got out of there?
Well, to paint the picture, I mean, before I went there, you saw me on the walker. Like, I was on my way to walking and being able to stand and bear weight. And then when I left, I couldn't even open a water bottle.
Could you sit up by yourself, hold yourself up by yourself?
No.
All right. So I was asking you what the term mamusha means in Polish. What is that?
It means mom.
And what happened when you would speak Polish to your mom, or try to?
So after some time, I was granted privileges to have phone conversations with my mom. And because I didn't have any Polish instruction at the hospital, my only way to maintain my Polish or maybe get better at it was by talking in Polish to my mom. So I would say things like, Dzień dobry, mamusza, jak się masz, which just means, hello, mom, how are you? Or ja kocham cię, which means I love you. And every time I spoke in that language, I was told to stop. I have to speak in English. They would get really
Your Honor, I
worried.
apologize for the interruption. Same objection.
Overruled. You can finish your answer.
But they would always tell me to revert back to English so they could understand.
And so there was also a section in another one of the patient and families have rights that says you have a right to practice your cultural values and spiritual beliefs as long as they don't interfere with the well-being of others. I want to talk for a moment, then that's the hospital's right there that you have. I want to talk a little bit about being able to practice as a Catholic in the church, in Johns Hopkins during this period of time. So tell us how often you would have communion, go to church outside of this.
So pre-John Hopkins, I went to church every Sunday, and I went to Sunday school, so I'd get communion once a week.
All right. And once you got in there, what happened? Were you, how were your spiritual needs fulfilled?
They weren't. So I was not allowed to have the communion that my priest from my church at home brought. Eventually, I was able to.
Hang on, did anybody ever tell you, or did you ever learn why they weren't allowing in holy water, communion, wafers, things like that?
Objection to the they, Your Honor.
The hospital people who were managing you, the nurses, Kathy Beatty, so forth, the people you were communicating with regularly.
Yes.
Did you ever learn from them, or otherwise, if so, we'll explain, why they were keeping communion wafers and holy water and the like away from you?
I know the reason, and it was because they believed my mom was tampering with the wafer or the holy water and putting ketamine in it.
And similarly, there's a little off topic, baked goods, any type of food from home, were you allowed to have that?
Oh, no, never.
Only hospital food?
Correct.
What a joy. So let's get back to this now in terms of being able to practice your religion. What did you bring with you? Or if you didn't bring it in, what were you brought in terms of religious items to help you through this difficult time?
Right, so going into the hospital, we didn't know how long I was staying there. So eventually, I was given the rosary, which is a standard like thing Catholics pray with. And I was brought a prayer book so I could recite the prayers because there's a lot and I don't remember them all. Yeah, those were the two big things. And then the communion, which we talked about, and the holy water, which we already talked about.
And did Miss Beatty or someone else from the hospital at some point take those from you?
Yes.
So now, what were you told about your ability to practice your religion in the hospital? What did they say about it?
They thought my mom was controlling me through religion, so they were really against me praying and doing that sort of thing. But
What would they do if you tried to pray with your mom over the phone?
they would shut it down.
So what about a priest? Now, you had a priest from your church that you were comfortable with?
Yes.
Parish? And who was that?
That was Father Jack.
Okay. And tell us about visits from Father Jack.
So he was able to, I remember two distinctive visits. The first one was an attempt to give me the communion, and we just chat a little bit. And then the second time I remember seeing him is when he came to help my dad announce my mom's passing.
So were you allowed regular access to Father Jack?
Oh, no. Mm-mm.
Right. Now, as this was going on, these first couple of months there, did you, even though you're only 10, did you have an inkling of why they were doing this bizarre behavior?
Objection, Your Honor.
Strike it, this behavior.
Still objection again today.
Let's be more specific.
Maya, during this period of time, what, if anything, made you suspicious, and what were you suspicious of?
It was normally the comments that they made or the restrictions that they placed on me and not the other kids. Again, they never directly told me what was going on, even though I asked. So I had to figure it out for myself, and it did take time until I had a general understanding of what was taking place.
And what was taking place, Maya?
I was stripped from my family.
They did not want you to go back to your family?
No.
And was this told to you in some form by Miss Beatty?
She made a lot of comments, especially about my mom. She was the one who came up with the mental institution comment. She also had a lot of ideas of where I should be placed.
All right, and what was she suggesting for you as a place that they would place you?
So I remember this one instance when she came into my room. She asked if she could sit on the end of my bed, and I told her yes. She sat down, and she told me that they were discussing in court the idea of foster care and placing me in a home. She cautioned me, this is word from word what she said, foster care is nothing like it is in the movies. She said that, and then after saying that, she suggested that she take me in and she would be my foster parent.
Let's pull up 10013796. All right, this is in evidence. Let the record reflect from November 2nd. And so was it at or around the time reflected here that Ms. Beatty was initiating you into this concept that you would never go back to your parents, you would go to a foster family?
Objection, Your Honor, argumentative.
Overall,
I would say so, yes. I don't know the exact date that she told me, but I know it corresponded to I'm assuming, because she said it was a court hearing about foster care, and that's where she got the idea.
Now, this is psychology progress notes. Let's talk about that for a second. When you came in, were you seen by a psychologist to be given some testing?
At the hospital, I later found that out, yes.
All right, well, tell us who did that, if you don't recall.
I believe his name is Dr. Lewis. Is that the
Right.
one you're talking? Okay. Yes, I do remember that whole instance. I was wheeled into a separate room, and Dr. Lewis was in there with paper and pen and a bunch of tests. I did not want to be there. That day in particular, I was in more pain than usual. So much so, I actually could not complete all of the tests. I complained of my hand hurting. And then the nurse who wheeled me there, when she came to pick me up, I was in tears and I was crying.
Well, subsequent to, did Dr. Lewis engage you in any analysis or conversation like analysis?
I remember some of the things we talked about. He asked about my family. He asked about, he regularly put words in my mouth. He tried to get me to agree to things, and I would tell him, no, that's not true. And yet he wrote it down on the piece of paper.
Did you ever see his report?
Yes, and again, it's very frustrating because here you're going to a health, like a professional health place, and you have adults lying about what a child is saying. It's a whole nother level of messed up. It's just so unbelievably insane.
Did you find out whether he worked for the hospital or whether he was working for DCF at the time?
He never told me.
In terms of psychological counseling now, do you know who Dr. Katzenstein is?
I
Did
do.
you? How often would you meet with Dr. Katzenstein, if at all?
I think I relayed some information to Dr. Katzenstein, but I don't remember seeing them regularly.
Okay. And in the visits that you remember, what happened? Tell us a little bit about them.
I remember relaying some information to the doctor, but I don't remember the visits themselves because, again, I don't really remember them happening.
I want to go back to Dr. Lewis again. So there were all these statements in that report about things you said. How did those appear in there?
He was the one suggesting that narrative, trying to get me to agree. And even though I did not agree, he still wrote it down as if I did.
Did this add to your suspicion of what was going on here?
It did, because I've been to hospitals before and nothing like that had ever happened.
Okay. Can you tell us whether you had constant psychotherapy or whether it was limited or next to none?
It was next to none. I don't remember that happening regularly. There was a lot of PT, though.
Okay. Now, do you remember a time when you were put into a room and told you could not leave for some reason?
Are you referring to the
48 hours?
Yes. Yes, I was told about that.
Tell the jury what happened then.
So I was told it was for like a EKG, and I don't know what that is, so I just said, okay. I know now what an EKG is, and what happened in the room was nothing like an EKG. They left me there for 48 hours under surveillance, which they did not tell me about. They had a commode in there, and they just put it far enough away from the bed so I would have to physically stand up and use the bathroom. I called the nurses whenever I had to use the bathroom because obviously I'm not able to walk. And when they refused to help me go to the bathroom, I would defecate on myself.
So let's show 2703-B, a clip from the covert surveillance. you know you're being recorded through all this?
No, they never told me.
Continue. Is that it? Is that the end of it? Okay. Now, so you had to have help.
Yes.
And was there any way to reach that commode to relieve yourself without help?
No. Not in my condition.
And what would the nurses do when they came in and you had messed your bed?
They would be pretty angry. I had this one nurse, I would call her whenever I had used the bathroom, and I'm understanding that you have other patients. I get that. She would come into the room, and I'm not even joking, she would yell, 10 more minutes, and then she would storm off. But again, my door's open, the blinds are open. I could see her conversing with the nurses. They have these like little council like areas, and I could see her talking. She was not busy. So I genuinely believe that they just wanted to push me to the limit of like, oh, I'm about to pee myself, I have to get up and stand. But that never happened. Instead, I just peed on myself.
And you were not allowed to leave this room for 42
No.
to 48 hours?
No.
And you would have left if you could?
I wish I could have.
So they kept you in there against your will?
Correct.
All right, let's take a look at 21-116, a series of text messages at or around this time regarding this particular visit. And if we could move to the,
Judge, again, we object to foundation, and through this witness, these are not her text messages.
Overruled. You may proceed.
This next page. I'll get you highlight it, get to the part and highlight it with the description. All right, there you go. There you go. Can we, yes, it's 005 we're on right now. So this is with Dr. Dees and Dr. Sally Smith. Now, it says here something about pushing several feet in your wheelchair. Does CRPS involve paralysis?
No, it does not. There are some patients with pain so severe that they might not be able to move their limb, but that wasn't the case for me. I was still able to move my limbs. Obviously, I had my days, but I've never had paralysis. That's not associated with CRPS at all.
But that's what they were concentrating on, was whether you could move around or not?
Right. So even though I explained to them that the symptoms vary, that's just the nature of CRPS. For some reason, they couldn't understand that.
All right, so I think there's another one here from Dr. Smith replying to this.
Yeah, one sec.
It talks here about you being 10 and not being able to perform this charade effectively. Were you keeping up a charade, Maya?
Not at all.
And did anyone ever come into you, thinking back to the patient's rights, and explain to you that they were concerned that you were making all this up?
No, they never told me that, but they did tell me frequently that I was all in my head. So they just planted the idea there instead of questioning me about it.
Now, and at 10 years old, I know you're very intelligent for a 10-year-old, but were you equipped to try to outsmart or outthink or whatever these doctors at this point?
I would never do that to a doctor. I had an illness, and that's what it was.
Thank you. Thanks, Nick. All right. Nick, did you have something you wanted to go or say? Now, there was a part of I forgot an event here. That's why I have Nick. So it talks here in your rights about being able to have another doctor or specialist outside the hospital see you. Was there an attempt, to the best of your knowledge, to have Dr. Hannah come see you
In December?
at
Or-
any time?
I don't remember that. I know eventually down the line I was able to see him, but I was not made aware of any attempt for him to come to the hospital.
Okay, so this was outside the hospital when you finally saw him.
Correct.
So during your time in the hospital, was any doctor outside of Johns Hopkins allowed to come in and examine you?
No.
Okay, now, I want to pull up 2703-A and ask you, were your CRPS lesions prominent by this point?
Yes.
And did you from time to time ask the nurses to give you something to help them?
I did. I was without my special lotion that I was prescribed back at home with the lesions. And here I just requested Aquaphor because I believed it was the next best thing. Yeah, here I'm showing where all my lesions are.
How, if you know, let's get finished with it here. Keep going. Is this pretty much what you did all day long? Sit in that
Yes.
bed?
Yeah. That's why all my belongings are on it.
So you applied your own salve to them? Did it help?
No.
Did you tell them it was painful?
I was explaining that to her, yes.
So what was the hospital doing to help you deal with painful lesions?
Well, they gave me Aquaphor, but again, it doesn't really do much for them.
Were any of these nurses ever nice to you?
I had a few nurses that were nice, but I could tell that they were all agenda driven. Like the whole Megan Trainor incident. I don't know if you want me to explain that now, but
I'm going to get to that right
Okay.
after we talk just a second about how they were documenting this. So let's pull up, like you were just applying to all your stuff, so all your CRPS lesions. All right, let's pull up 1001-2643. And let the record reflect that's a skin assessment for that day. And if we could focus there on a particular day, actually any day around there. Is there even one for that day? 19th, 18th, 20th. Where's the 19th? Do you see anywhere where, after all that, they documented on your skin report any of these lesions?
even though I told them about them, they did not document them, trying to fit the narrative that I was making it up.
Let's also then take a look at 2571-014. And for the record, I think this is a photo of your thumb. Now, that looks like a pretty small line.
Yeah, it's just starting out.
Okay. How did they progress, by the way? They start like that, and then what happens?
Normally, without treatment, they do tend to get bigger and they are open to the air. They could be on any part of the body, even non-affected areas of CRPS.
Could you have lesions on other parts of your body as of this date, November 25th, 2016?
Yes.
Okay. Then let's take a look with, I believe, 1001-2, 1640 and 41 to see whether that was documented. So that was on the. Do you see anywhere where they are documenting any of your lesions on this?
No.
All right, let's look at 2571-008 and see what that one says. That's not it.
That's
I
not
think
in
it's,
evidence,
is
no.
it 2571-3013?
Yes.
All right, 2571-013. All right, what's going on here, Maya?
Well, first off, you could see the discoloration of my skin, which is a symptom of CRPS. And then you have some small lesions starting out, but they're getting bigger.
All right, now.
And you could still see the dystonia. Sorry, I just wanted to point that out.
All right, so let's then compare that to the skin assessment for that day, if you've got it. I think it's 1001-2640, and, yeah, I think so.
Yes.
Is that it? There's a lot of paper. All right, let's look here and see that day. Okay. Did they note anywhere that you had this discoloration and lesions?
No.
All right, let's look at 2571-026. Or did I just do that one? No, I did not do that one yet. Bring that up. And for the record, this is December 22nd, 2016. If we could focus in on your forehead. Did you get them on your forehead too?
Yes, I got them pretty much everywhere. So I have one on my forehead, and then on my left knee, I have one.
Okay, can we see the left knee then? Okay, all right. Now, can we compare that to 1001-2637? See if they documented it. Talking about it December 22nd. Okay. You see anywhere where they're documenting the fact that you're continuing to have lesions?
No.
All right, and then 2571-030. No, I'm sorry, is that, we just did that one, sorry. 2571-040. Is that the same lesion now getting worse?
Yes.
All right. And do we have the skin report for that day?
No, go to 2571-042.
All right.
That's the 30th now.
All right, that's on December 30th. So what's happening with this lesion? Why isn't it healing?
That's pretty standard for CRPS lesions. Normally when you have a cut, it goes away relatively quickly, but with CRPS, it takes a lot longer to heal. And then also on my hands, I have them again.
All right, so now, and if we have it, the skin report, but I don't know if we have a skin report.
1001 456.
1001 456.
Bottom of the page.
Yeah, let's see. So here you are describing burning pain, that you're in pain and depressed. And it increases movement. And they're worried about your skinny jeans. When could you wear your skinny jeans?
I don't know what they're talking about.
Did you have
Honestly.
skinny jeans?
I don't remember having skinny jeans in the hospital. In all of the pictures, I'm wearing shorts, so.
Okay. She also reported she now has RSD, CRPS, skin lesions in her hands and forehead, and says they're the usual lesions. What is the date of this? This is December 30th, 2016. We've been through now 2 months of lesions.
Go to the top of that page.
Yep. Top of the next page, I believe. She does not let me examine. Self-inflicted excoriations. Do you even know what a self-inflicted excoriation is, Maya?
No, at the time I had no idea what that meant. But again, the doctors were telling me it was all my fault. I was doing this to myself.
Well, did they ever ask you whether you were self-inflicting these lesions?
They just told me. They never asked. And then when they told me and accused me of self-inflicting the lesions, I told them, no, it's just part of the CRPS.
Are we on 2116, page 001? So this whole time they were not documenting your lesions other than to say that now you're scratching yourself?
Correct.
Okay. Here's a series of, I believe, texts, messages back and forth. And if we could focus on anyone. Were they suspicious of your mom and dad at this time?
Yes, so there was this whole ordeal with Kathy assuming that I was emailing my mom. So my teacher, Jackie Dieter, she came over to the hospital and I was given a laptop for school purposes exclusively. And most people don't know this, but with the school email, so I only had a school email, which is like your N number, which is what you use to log in, and then it's whatever school county you're at .net. So I could only send emails to people within the school district. That meant teachers and students. That is it. I could not receive any external emails. As a matter of fact, the whole system itself blocks external emails, and you cannot send external emails to people outside of the system. Again, it blocks it. It will not let you. So there was this nurse who was in my room when I was on my computer trying to do homework and school, and she noticed that I was on the email portion of the platform. She immediately went, grabbed Kathy, told Kathy I was probably trying to contact my mom. Kathy came back into the room. She said that I can no longer have my computer because she was in fear that I was browsing sex websites.
Did you know what a sex website was at 10 years old?
I didn't even know what sex was.
Apparently she was introducing this concept.
Yes.
So let's talk about your relationship with Kathy Beatty. Was she there on just one floor so that if you switched from one floor to the next floor, you got somebody new?
So it's pretty standard practice that whenever you move floors, there's a social worker per floor. But weirdly enough, Kathy Beatty literally followed me wherever I went.
So from the time assigned to the end, she was there.
Yes.
Okay. And how would you describe her interest in you? Was it the normal interest of a nurse or
Objects and speculation.
social worker, or was it something,
Sustained.
what if anything was unusual about Kathy Beatty's approach to you?
Overruled.
I have a lot of stories about Kathy Beatty, so it's going to take some time to go through them all. But there was the whole chapel incident where a nurse wheeled me down to the first floor where the chapel is located. The nurse left when Kathy Beatty approached me. Kathy Beatty then kissed me, said, "I'm not trying to be your mother, but I can be." Then she wheeled me into the chapel, and at this point, you know, I was so excited to finally be able to go to the chapel, and she just destroyed all of my excitement. She picks me up, puts me on her lap. She sits in this tan chair at the back of the chapel. There's a photo of that. And she just sat with me there, and then I told her I was done praying. I was very quick in there because I just wanted to go back to my room. And then I was put back into my room. There's many instances, numerous occasions, that she lifted me up and put me on her lap. She clawed through my hair. I was close enough to her, almost at all times, to the point where I knew she had permanent eyeliner. That's not something you know unless you're really close to a person. She would tell me weird details about her life. Yeah.
Let's show 2597-18. I believe this is a photo of the chapel. And were you ever curious as to why she had you in the chapel?
So one really interesting thing about the chapel is there's no cameras. It's the only place.
Were you uncomfortable with Kathy Beatty's advances on you?
Objection, Your Honor, argumentative.
Sustained.
Did these incidents with Kathy Beatty, were they upsetting to you?
Yes.
Did they cause you to fear her?
Most certainly, and the whole photo incident truly solidified that.
We'll get to that in a moment. And was Kathy Beatty the only one that was tormenting you, if you want to use that term, but during this period of time?
Same objection, argumentative.
Overruled.
No, there were other people as well. I mean, it was the doctors, through their words of accusing my mom and I of certain things, or, well, for me, I guess, accusing me of not having my CRPS. And then there was one nurse in particular, Ashley Sumner, who I had encounters with in the Piku.
So what happened, tell us about the Megan Trainor incident and Nurse Ashley.
Okay, so Nurse Ashley was not, she's independent from the Megan Trainor incident, Ashley Sumner, Piku,
Okay.
and then the Megan Trainor incident was on floor 7.
Okay, well, tell us what happened on floor 7.
Okay, floor 7. So there was at one point where a nurse had come into my room, and she informed me that she had looked me up and knew that I liked Megan Trainor. So I had a public Instagram at the time, and I was only 10. And so I posted videos of me singing and dancing to Megan Trainor, my favorite artist. So I was a little I don't know, it put me off that why would a health professional look up their patient on the internet and proceed to look them up on social media. But I kind of dismissed it until later in the day. She not only came back with herself, but a number of people, I would say probably 6-7 nurses and rec workers. They all stood in a line. The one in the middle was next, in front of my bed, and she was holding a phone camera. And the one next to her was playing a Megan Trainor song called I Feel Better When I'm Dancing, one of the ones I posted on social media. They were trying to get me to dance and sing and move my extremities in ways that would hurt me. And when I did not move in the way that they wanted me to, or move as vigorously as they wanted me to, they stormed out of my room.
Were they dancing, trying to dance around you?
Yes, they were also trying to get me to do certain movements, but I was in severe pain, so I was barely moving. I smiled a little bit, I did my best, but ultimately they never ended up showing the video to the court because it didn't fit their narrative.
So they were, from your perspective, what were they trying to get you to do? What?
I think they were just
Your Honor,
trying.
I apologize for interrupting again, object to the day.
What's the legal basis?
I'm objecting to mischaracterization foundation.
Overruled. She can answer.
I believe the nurses were trying to make me to look like I was as healthy as possible, that I was living my best life in the hospital. I was listening to Megan Trainor, I was dancing, I was smiling with all the nurses, but that wasn't the case at all.
So it was my mistake. I didn't realize Nurse Ashley was involved in this. Was there an incident with Nurse Ashley where you were hurt?
Yeah, so we have to jump back to the beginning. So this is like October. Once my dad and mom were told to leave, I was obviously left alone. And there's one nurse in particular who I had the most interactions with, and that was Ashley Sumner. There was a point where they were moving me up to floor 7, so that called for a bed change. They regularly have to change the sheets and whatnot, it's like policy. But even though I had told her I cannot walk, I cannot stand, I cannot roll, she threatened me. She said, if you don't move right now, like, what did she say? Or else. That's what she said, or else. If you don't move right now, or else. I remember the or else. And I just started crying because I'm so scared. Like, my parents aren't here. I have nobody that I trust. And this random lady is threatening me. And I can't even perform the movements that she wants me to. So she yelled at me for quite some time, telling me to roll over. I know you can move. I know you're faking it. Just stand up. We all know. Eventually, she gave up because I could not do what she wanted me to do. She went out in the hallway, grabbed about 3-4 nurses. They lifted me up by the sheet of the bed itself to transfer me, and she dropped my arm really hard in the bed. Now, that's insignificant to most people, but to a person with CRPS, it's like falling on concrete. Like, it hurt so bad. I remember the feeling just in my body. It was so painful. And I just cried. She was just awful, and I don't know, I'll never forget her.
All right. Getting back to Miss Beatty then, do you like chocolate cake?
I do, and I ordered that almost every night at the hospital.
All right. Did Kathy Beatty know that you liked chocolate cake?
Yes, yep,
Was
she
there
became
an
aware.
incident where that was held out as a prize or something?
Yeah, so in PT, as my stay went on, they wanted me to improve, but because of their system of doing it, it hurt my CRPS, so I wasn't making the improvements that were typical of other patients that are non-CRPSers. So she thought that bribing me would maybe spark some more motivation for me to start doing different things. On one instance, she said that she would bake me a chocolate cake if I did well in PT. So I tried my best and I overexerted myself because the thought of just having something that was non-hospital food for the first time was enough motivation for me to, risk putting myself in more pain. So after the therapy session, I asked her if I could have it, and she said no, because it's Lent. Now, I have to explain this as well. So I'm Catholic, and Lent is a standard practice before Easter. You give up something for 40 days. And, I'm a kid, so I don't really understand the time of when it was supposed to happen. I just knew that Lent was a thing associated with the Catholic religion, and I've done it before. I was in the hospital October, November, December, early January. That's not around Easter. She knew that I was Catholic and that I was so religious that she held the idea of Lent over my head and saying that I couldn't have the chocolate because I gave up chocolate for Lent.
So what about talking to your mom and dad through this period? Now, was this a frequent thing or an infrequent thing?
Your Honor, I apologize for objecting again, but again, a foundation type thing.
Let's be better on the time, but otherwise overruled.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I got them. Okay, thanks. So let's talk about the graduation of,
I'm sorry to cut you off, but there's another story about Kathy and the PT, another bribe, if I could share.
sure, absolutely.
Okay.
What happened with, I have to answer the question.
Okay.
What else happened with Ms. Beatty insofar as tempting you to do something?
Again, it was another religious motivation. She told me again, if I try really hard in PT, she will take me to the chapel. Not the chapel in the hospital, but the chapel outside of the hospital, a couple blocks down. So again, I tried my best, And after the PT session, I asked her, when can we go to the church? And she said, I didn't do well enough.
All right. I want to talk about in October, how often you were able to talk to your mom or dad.
Well, the visits with my dad and my brother, they varied. There was times where I was allowed to have visits with them, and then other times not. And then with my mom, I was allowed phone calls at certain points, and then again not. It was so on and off, I really had no idea of when it was permitted and when it wasn't.
And when you did have the opportunity to speak with your mom, were there any problems with those calls that made it difficult for you to communicate, or your mom to communicate?
There was always a problem.
Like what?
Well, it was always the person who was overseeing the calls, Kathy Beatty, again. She would sit on the edge of my bed, listen in on all the phone calls, and she would limit our conversation to very basic and insignificant things.
So I'm going to publish then 3 clips in evidence. For the record, they're 2608A, B, and C. And you've heard these previously?
Yes.
Is this, best of your knowledge and understanding, Kathy Beatty's voice that we'll hear coming in?
Yes.
If we play A, please.
Okay, I'm recording this phone call so everybody knows. Okay, hi mommy. Hi honey, how are you, sweetie pie? I'm hurting, I miss you. I miss you so much too. I miss you so much every day. Every single day. You know how happy it makes me feel to hear your voice. Same here. I miss you so much, and I am so happy that I'm finally able to hear your voice too. Yeah. I hope I see you. What did you say, sweetie? I hope I can see you soon. I would love to see you soon. I would love to see you soon. We just have to wait for the judge to make the decision, okay? As soon as he makes the decision, then I'll be able to see you. Okay? Yeah.
Beata, we're not allowed to talk about the case, okay? Maya, honey, we're going to talk about what you've been doing, if you need any Shopkins or things like that, if you had nice visits with your daddy, but we can't discuss the case, okay, honey?
Was Beatty the only one that would know about those Shopkins?
Yes.
All right.
Because she is actually the one who delivered some of them to me.
When these were going on, what was Kathy Beatty's facial gestures?
So you can't obviously see it on the audio recording, but when I tell you, like every single time I had a conversation with my mom, she'd be rolling her eyes like that, or she'd be making faces or sticking out her tongue. Like she was acting like a toddler.
Let's play B, 2608B.
How you doing? How is PT and OT going for you? Not good. Why is it?
Okay, Beata, we can't discuss any of those type of matters, okay?
Okay.
All right, and then 2608C.
And what do you usually need help with? My pants. What happens with the pants? I just can't lift them up. You can't pull up the pants anymore? No. But when did that start, Maya? Oh, I don't know. Maybe a while ago. I don't know. Yeah. I don't remember when it started. Okay. PBH. What's PBH?
Yeah, I know, Reed, I left that line of conversation. Well, thank you.
Okay.
Now, during this period of time, are you aware now that your parents, strike it, are you aware now that through this entire period of time, your parents retained the rights to be able to be involved in direct your medical care?
Yes.
So we're trying to, discuss your physical therapy here?
I was trying to tell her about it because she asked, but Kathy Beatty put a stop to that.
All right, now, so tell us about the pulling up the pants, and it was good humming. I like the humming part. But why is it important that at this point you could no longer pull up your pants?
So it's showing how my condition, the longer I stay in, the more of the things I was able to do, I'm losing in terms of like my independence.
Okay, and again, were you allowed to use any words of Polish in these conversations?
No, that's why I wasn't.
All right, I want to ask you now, did your mom and dad still try to get stuff for you during this period of time? You know, gifts, little things, cheer you up?
Yes. Yeah.
Did there come a time that they bought you a dress you always wanted, a more formal dress?
Yeah, so this was pre John Hopkins All Children's Hospital. We were at the Ellington like outlet malls, and we went into Tommy Hilfiger, and there was this really nice dress that I was obsessed with. It's just like white, the shoulder it wasn't like long sleeve, it was just like the width of a dollar bill, and then around it was the navy trim, and then the signature logo was on the breast area.
And so were there attempts made to bring this dress to you while you were at the hospital?
Yes, so my dad was permitted visitation, but everything that well, to my knowledge, like most of the things he gave to me, they had to go through certain people. And the dress that he had brought, it had to be given to Kathy Beatty before it reached me.
Did the dress ever reach you?
No, and I clarified with my dad because I thought, maybe he didn't know what dress I was talking about, but he was there when I bought it, and I described it to him. He knew exactly what I was talking about. Instead, I got a red dress, but to this day, that dress is probably rotting in Kathy Beatty's office.
Where did it turn out that dress that was not delivered to you, the Hilfiger dress, actually was?
Kathy Beatty had it.
Now,
Oh, and I know that because another social worker said she saw it in Kathy Beatty's office.
that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, and so now I want to talk a bit about the day you were supposed to go to a court here, January 6th, right? So on that day, were you excited?
I was ecstatic. I mean, not only was I getting out of the hospital for a little bit of time, I was going to see my uncle, and the goal was to see the judge.
All right, and were you preparing for it, trying to get yourself ready and?
Yeah, I told people in the hospital, the people, like the nurses and whatnot, I'm going to court today, I was excited, yeah.
And so then what happened insofar as trying, what did you have to do before you were allowed to go to the court and see the judge? What happened with Miss Beatty?
So it was my understanding that I was just allowed to go to court because they ruled on it and I was allowed to come in person. So I was just expecting my uncle was going to come pick me up, and then Kathy Beatty was going to wheel me down to meet with my uncle and put me in his car. Instead, Kathy Beatty showed up in my room a little bit earlier than the time I was supposed to go. She came in alone initially, and she told me that if I wanted to go and see my mom in court, I was going to have to be stripped naked and photographed by her nude, so I could go to court. I cried and cried because I'm a very modest and private person when it comes to stuff like that. I've I have been, and there's a reason for that. I really respect my privacy. And eventually I was able to reason with Kathy, and she said that I could keep my training bra on and my shorts. That's when she left the room. She came back with Nurse Alicia, I don't know her last name, but she came in and she assisted with holding me down and moving me and removing some articles of my clothing for the photos. Now, the purpose for these photos, typically, DCF takes them. DCF did not take these. And there's supposed to be a side-by-side comparison of pre-visit and post-visit. So I was leaving the hospital, so they took the photos before. There was never photos taken after.
And has it come to your attention that this did not end up in any analysis in the medical records or anything like that?
That's another thing I was promised in the whole reasoning with Kathy about not being nude. She told me that I could keep my shorts on in the training bra, and I specifically asked her to keep these photos private. I asked her if they were just going to be in the medical record, and she told me, yes, only doctors can see them. She actually physically went over to the computer where I've seen nurses and doctors put in information, and turns out she never put the photos in there.
All right, so let's turn to, first I want to publish a photo, 2604. And were you actively trying to keep them from taking off your clothes? No, that's not it. There.
Yes, so that, you see my hands right there, and then someone else's hand, I can't tell if that's Kathy's or the nurse's, but I was trying to pull up my shirt actively as she was pulling it down.
All right. And around this time, where we go into a few more photos, did you document this in your MyCare journal?
I believe I did. I haven't seen the MyCare journal in quite some time, so I would need my memory refreshed.
Let's look at this photo here. Now, it has been portrayed that you were somehow enjoying this and just holding hands. Tell the jury what was going on.
I was not enjoying this at all. It is true, when the nurse came back into the room, I wasn't crying as much because Kathy had calmed me down after we made that, agreement. We met in the middle. But you can see my cheeks are red, and that happens a lot when I've been crying.
Okay, and we can see a little corner of your mouth there. Are you smiling, grimacing, or what?
I am most definitely not smiling.
And is that a training bra?
It is.
Now, was there a time that you had to switch out of one bra to another?
Yes, so they're trying to maintain the position that, I was in a training bra and shorts, like we didn't, see anything. No, Kathy watched as I got naked because I was changing into clothes for court. That's why there's two different outfits, but this was the same time period. There was no before and after photos.
All right. Let's look at 2604-15. There you are, blue shorts. Now, tell us about the shorts. Did you remain in the same outfit during this ordeal?
No, because I was changing into court clothes.
Okay. So which are these, the blue shorts there? That's
I don't know which outfit I ended up wearing to court, but
okay. And then let's look at 2, 3. Oh, no, we're going through these. Let's go through these. And now what is that? What kind of bra is that?
that's a training bra again.
Which came first, the training bra or the those are both training bras?
Both are training bras, correct? They switched them out.
So this wasn't a workout bra or anything? I don't know that
most
much
of
about
no.
bras. And did you tell them while were they holding you down through much of this?
Yes, and some of the photos you could see their hand, but it looks like the photos are mostly zoomed in, so you can't see their hand placement.
Did you want to leave and get out of there?
Yes,
And were they preventing you from getting out of there?
they were until the photos were completed.
And did you have any control or ability to get out of there? physically?
No, because I couldn't walk or stand.
And this was against your will?
Correct.
All right, let's look at 2364, unless there's more of these we want to go through.
That's good.
You got 'em?
That's it, so.
Yeah, I got it. Okay. I wasn't going to cover it, but we will. So what was your relationship with Alicia, the nurse that was in there before this?
So I had seen her before and I recognized her. And I mean, my first encounter with her, I trusted her. I had no reason to doubt her as, a healthcare professional. Actually, here in my care journal, I wrote her name. And the second time I saw her, she was assisting Kathy Beatty in photographing me and changing me in front of Kathy Beatty.
Let's look at 2364009.
That's what that is.
Is this it?
This dog.
All right, so she's right there. All right. And so how did you react when you saw that Alicia was now one of the people holding you down?
It was another complete breach of my trust.
Did you feel betrayed?
Absolutely. I felt betrayed in that hospital almost every day.
All right. Now, I want to talk for a moment. I think we've gone over the necklace that you still wear. How did you learn about your mom's suicide? And tell us the first time you felt that this may have happened.
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting story. So, on the 7th, I'll never forget, January 7th, I couldn't sleep. Again, it was a combination of just pain and, my depression from being isolated from my family. So I was up until 2 in the morning. And I swear to God, I am not making this up. At 2 in the morning, I broke out in tears. I was just crying uncontrollably. And I called the nurse in and I told her, this was a nurse that I actually had a pretty good relationship with. And I told her, I miss my mom. I miss my mom. I love my mom. I want to go home to my mom. Turns out she ended her life.
Was that around that time that
Yeah.
you did? Okay.
That's why I always say that it was really January 8th that she died, not the 7th, because
You
I
felt
just have this feeling that it was then.
You felt it.
Hmm.
All right. So, how did they go about telling you that your mom was gone?
So I had a visit with my Aunt Wendy, I want to say maybe the day after or so.
Uh-huh.
So this was the 8th now. And something was off with her. And I asked her what's wrong. And she said, I don't know, just something happened earlier today. Sorry. So she didn't end up telling me then. I just enjoyed the rest of my visit with her as usual. And I'm not sure if it was that evening that my dad came in with my brother and Father Jack, but I know it was sometime close to January 8th. And I was sat down on the couch. My dad was I think I was maybe I wasn't in the wheelchair, maybe I was on the couch. My dad may have lifted me and put me on the couch, so I'm not sure about that specific detail. But my dad was right next to me, and right next to my dad was Kyle. In front of me was Father Jack. My dad said he had some bad news. And weirdly enough, the first thing I thought of was they're not going to let me home, or that I was going to be put in foster care. And it turned out to be even worse than that. My mom had died. So I was told that, and immediately after my dad had to leave.
Okay. How long was your family allowed in there to tell you that your mom had passed?
it wasn't a lot of time. If I'm being completely honest, it was actually so unbelievably cruel, the amount of time they allocated for me to spend with my family after hearing such awful news.
So after this now, if your mom was supposed to be the reason why here with this Munchausen thing, and your mom's gone, did they let you go?
Objection, I'd like to approach on this one.
Members of the jury, I'm going to sustain the objection. I'm going to direct that you disregard the last question. Let me give you an instruction at this time. At the time of Beata Kowalski's death, Maya Kowalski was still under the jurisdiction of the dependency court, and a court order remained in effect continuing Maya Kowalski's stay at Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital. And Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital could not release Maya Kowalski without a court order. You may continue.
To the best of your knowledge, after this, did Johns Hopkins continue to maintain a diagnosis of Munchausen by proxy?
Objection, foundation.
Overruled.
Yes.
And are you aware of how they responded to your mother's suicide internally?
I am. I actually had one-on-one interactions with the nurses. So most of the nurses, when I told them, they would say, "Oh, sorry," and just kind of continue on. And here I am just like crying, no consoling me whatsoever. However, there was one nurse who did, she was extremely kind and compassionate about the whole situation. As a matter of fact, she started crying as well.
So let's publish again 2175-004. I'll ask you whether anyone here at the hospital did either of these doctors ever tell you that they thought it was the right thing for you to lose your mother?
Object to the statement on March 1.
It's overruled.
They never directly one-on-one told me, but the fact that they kept me in the hospital and they regularly told me that, my mom was forcing this on me, they felt that their whole narrative that they were maintaining, they felt that it was better that I was without my mom.
And there on the bottom, did they believe that now life was going to be better for you without your mom in it?
Objection, speculation.
Overruled.
It's sickening, but yes.
And Maya, we'll get into it in a moment. All right. Let's show 1002-001. Publish that. It's in evidence, Your Honor.
If it's in evidence, you may.
Okay. All right, I'll ask you now, I asked you a question before about Munchausen by proxy. If you will look down there at the bottom, under the admission diagnosis and then the discharge diagnosis, what is it?
It's fictitious disorder, Munchausen syndrome by proxy, and conversion disorder.
All right, now, how long was it before you were able to go home?
I was released on January 13th, and that's why 13 is my lucky number.
Okay, so about, 6 days after your mom?
Correct.
All right, let's show 2528-002 and ask you how things were when you came home. I don't think that's... I think it's 25282 and 3. That is definitely not, and neither is that. I know, and they're not the right ones. This is the
It's 2582.
2580.
82.
82. So it's super backwards. All right. So it's 2582002, 2582003. Tell the jury what's happening here.
So this is at the very entrance of my subdivision. I am in one of my, one of my dad's friends, but he also went to the same church as us. He helped pick up our stuff and take all our belongings out of the hospital. So I'm in his car, and it's basically the entire neighborhood with balloons welcoming me back home after 3 months.
Okay. And then
3.5 months.
And then let's look at 2582003. Okay.
Yeah, so this is another sign that was part of the homecoming party.
Now, in the car coming home, were you able to hold yourself up?
No.
Can you describe for the jury your condition
Well,
physically?
I was not doing well. I had lesions, discolorations, temperature changes. Now I physically wasn't able to sit up by myself. As I explained earlier, we had to basically start all over from the beginning. I couldn't even open up a bottle cap. I had to have help using the restroom. That included, even later on when I went to friends' houses, I had to have their parents help me, which is extremely humiliating, but it's how my condition was. I could no longer stand up like I did on the walker, like I did previous to entering Johns Hopkins, and my pain obviously was a lot worse.
So, now, what did you decide to do in, strike it, what was it like, although we'll get into damages another time, but what was it like coming home to the house after this?
It was very emotional. I remember being wheeled in and having to be pushed to my room because I couldn't wheel myself anymore. I remember, you know how like every house has like a smell? Like when you go into somebody else's house, it smells. It was just like so soothing to like have that familiar like air around me, I guess. I remember my room. It was very different than how I had left it. There was gifts that my dad had to take home from the hospital that I wasn't permitted to have in there. There was 2 notes my mom had written me.
That never made it to you?
No.
And how was it without your mom being there?
I mean, as much as I was happy to be home, I try not to complain, but obviously it wasn't as perfect as I wanted it to be. I wanted her there.
So now you had a decision to make on your recovery. What did you decide to do?
I decided to push forward.
And tell the jury how you did it, what you did.
I didn't consider my circumstances. I considered my God. I didn't consider what I didn't have. I considered the resources and tools I had. I had to shift my entire mindset. It was so hard, but I did it.
And you did it without the use of any ketamine or any other meds?
I did.
And why not? What was your worry if you did?
I was scared that I was going to end up in the same situation I just got out of.
And so in terms of going to see doctors and so forth during this period to help you, what was your feeling about that?
I didn't want to ever see a medical professional again. Not even my primary care physician that I've seen forever. He's such a lovely guy, and here I didn't ever want to step foot into his office. I didn't want to ever go to a doctor.
How about Agility Fitness? How did they fit into this?
So Agility Fitness, it's like a physical therapy center, and I don't know if he's like the manager or if he owned the place. I don't really know what his title was, but he went to our church. So I trusted him, and he has a really nice family. I've met them all. And that's when I worked with Rachel Young. I previously had some interactions with her, and I really liked her.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked with her very frequently.
And so how long then this time did it take you, how long did it take you to be able to start to transition from wheelchair to crutches?
So it was 6th grade when, so this was the fall, I would say August, middle August, I was able to get up on crutches, and I struggled very much so throughout the school day. I was quite miserable, but I got stronger and stronger every single day. I mean, I truly believe my mom up in heaven really helped with facilitating my recovery, but it was not pain-free. It most certainly was not. It was very hard.
Was it significantly harder than when you had the ketamine and the other meds to help you?
Oh, yes, yes.
Mr. Anderson, within the next 5 minutes, let's find a breaking point.
Yes,
Within
sir.
5 minutes.
Yes, sir. And then, I just have two questions. And then, how long did it take you until you were able to start getting off crutches, either to one crutch or completely off of them?
It took about another year. Yeah.
So almost, what, year and 3/4, 2 years?
It was a little bit more than a year, but yeah, I did it.
All right. Now, this would not,
Within 5 minutes, so just, you
Yes,
lead
sir.
us within 5 minutes.
all right. So, now, after you had gotten out of the wheelchair and off crutches, did you have a relapse then within a year or so?
I did.
And when was that? The record reflects that
It was 2020,
November
but-
of 2020.
Yeah, I know it's 2020. I just forget what month.
All right. So tell the jury about how this came about. What was it that was triggering you or starting it? Did you injure yourself or what?
I didn't have a physical injury for this relapse. However, I was having lots of depots during this time, and the stress from litigation really impacted me.
No, we won't talk about that part of it,
But yeah,
all right. Were you still having a great deal of pain at this point?
Yes.
And did you have a stomach issue that came
Again, yes, I did.
And was this the same type of pain that we talked about before with the gut muscles?
Yes, in a similar way, yeah.
So explain what happened with this.
So I had the burning pain again. I was stressed out, so I wasn't eating so much, but the CRPS pain, once I had that relapse, it just amplified the entire situation. It hurt to eat, and I was falling apart.
Let's publish 2580-001. Okay. And did you dye your hair there, or what's that?
No, that's my natural color, actually. It's just the lighting in the room.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And was this during COVID with the mask, or was it just you were in the hospital?
It might have been COVID.
I can't remember when COVID
don't know.
was. All right. And so then let's publish 2580-002. Now,
I apologize, Mr. Anderson. Can you tell me what the date of this, of the last photo?
Sure. This would have been, I don't know that's on there. It would have been in November of 2020.
Yeah, they're all the same time frame.
November 2020 or 2022?
2020.
2020. All right, so is this you?
Yes.
What's wrong with this picture? Had you lost weight?
Yes, a significant amount.
Is that your collarbone there?
Yes.
How much weight did you lose?
I don't know the number, but it was a substantial amount.
And did you have to have something done to eventually stop this wasting away?
Yeah, so there was a feeding tube placed, and I got sedation for that one. I asked for it, and they had no questions about that. And then my dad helped at home with the feeding treatment, and I only stayed in the hospital for 7 days. I don't know if that's like, but I know it was like a week or less. And they were very understanding of my situation and took care of me.
Let's look at 2580-002. That's you again. And your legs are very thin there.
Yes.
Now, previous to this, had you had a port in for infusions?
I did, yes.
And who put that port in?
John Hopkins All Children's Hospital.
Where on your body was the port?
The port was on my right, like under my armpit, kind of. I didn't want it on my chest, so it was placed under my armpit.
Was it for the purpose of ketamine infusions?
Yes, actually, we told the doctors at John Hopkins All Children's Hospital that the purpose of this was for ketamine infusions at Dr. Hannah's office, and they were agreeable to that.
So they performed an operation to help your ketamine infusions?
They did.
Did anyone question whether your mother was committing Munchausen by proxy by getting a port for you?
Objection, speculation.
Overruled.
No, they did not question it.
Well, did they question whether you had CRPS before they put a port in?
They accepted the diagnosis.
And how did those doctors treat you?
Those doctors that I encountered at John Hopkins, they didn't question my diagnosis, and they were ready to put the port in because they knew it was necessary for my infusions.